The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
You keep saying you got something for me.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Vixens Who Rule on VinceRussoBrand.com. I have a very special guest here tonight. And this woman and I, we were kind of like two ships that passed in the night. I think we may have worked together here. I think we may have worked together there. But we never really worked together on a full-time basis. Therefore, I never really got the opportunity to, have a conversation with her, meet her, introduce myself. So this is what we're kind of doing for the first time. Now, this individual, is an legend in the business because she's been around for a while and she's worked for everybody. But she's kind of done it under the radar. And these are some of the things that we're going to talk about. And this, as you know me, you know that my interviews aren't about wrestling. And I really don't even want to talk about wrestling with this individual. There are so many other things I want to discuss. But I'm going to bring her on the show now. And my guest, the Vixens Who Rule and Still Rule, the one and only April Hunter. April, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, April. But listen, I think for a little while, I've been trying to get you on my show. I've been following you, desperately trying to get you to follow me so I could DM you. I think one of two things. I think you've either been blowing me off or I think you've been playing a little hard to get. Tell me which one it's been.
Actually, it's option C. I have been dealing with house renovations and moving and trying to work at 3 different careers right now. So my Twitter, a lot of it is automated, so I'll check in like once or twice a day and just write back real quick. And it wasn't until I saw a fan include you in that was the first time I saw anything from you. So I was like, uh-oh. When you said you had been trying to get in touch with me, I hadn't seen anything before that, so I'm kind of glad you tried a few times.
Yeah, well, April, I've been trying for months, and it's so funny. Everything I'm reading about you and all the research I'm doing about you, and you just kind of brought up what's going to be a huge part of this conversation. The fact that, you just said, oh, by the way, I'm doing 3 jobs, which is what I want to talk to you about, because reading your background, it fascinates me. And the thing with my interviews, April, is I don't sit here and say, okay, well, in, 2005, you faced so-and-so. I don't care about that. I care more about you, the individual and the woman. So we may go down a couple of areas that you're not used to. Are you cool with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. April,
I'm probably used to it. I was going to say, I whatever you want to talk about.
Okay, good, April, because listen, there's so many things I want to talk about you, and I got to be honest with you. A lot of what I want to talk to you about really is, for my own selfish reasons, I'm going to be picking your brain, because I there's a lot of things I want to learn from you, and it's an absolute shoot. And it was one of the reasons why I really wanted to bring you on my show, because I think you could help me out in a lot of ways. But let's just back up and let's start at the beginning. I know you were trained by Kowalski, at his school, but growing up, was there one goal? What was that goal as you got older to be a professional wrestler, or were there many things you wanted to do when you were younger?
It absolutely was not to be a professional wrestler. I fell into this just by chance and by luck. I wanted to do a variety of things, but my main thing was I always wanted to be a writer. So I've always been writing my whole life. I kind of inadvertently used professional wrestling as a chance to write more, because I write about a lot of the things that I see and run into. And if anybody's read any of my blogs, everything from very strange seatmates to tours in other countries and insane experiences to having relationships while on the road. So I kind of have had luck with wrestling, with writing.
Well, that obviously I'm a writer, so of course, right there, that's very interesting to me. Now, did this love of writing come very early on in your life?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
When did you realize that this was something that you wanted to do?
I honestly can't even remember when. I've been writing forever. I found stories when I was like 5 and 6 years old. I guess I used to write for all the little newspapers in the schools, and some of the stories are very badly written.
Now, did your parents have any kind of a background in this field, or this is an interest that you just kind of took upon yourself?
They weren't writers. My mom she was an artist. She did a lot of pen and inks, and my dad did photography on the side. But he was a flight instructor, and my mom was a nurse's aide that was their profession.
Yeah, but it sounds to me like they still kind of had that art gene, and maybe that's where the writing came from.
Maybe. Aren't all kids artists until they're not?
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. But now, April, you mentioned there, I fell into wrestling. How does one just fall into wrestling?
Well, kind of inadvertently through you, I think.
And I'm not getting any royalty checks?
I know, right? I was doing a lot of centerfold modeling, which led to a lot of fitness centerfold modeling. And I was competing in fitness and working with companies like Metrics and Extreme Nutrition in UK. And my friend had tried out for Playboy's Hard Bodies. They were doing another Hard Bodies issue. And they had turned her down, but she knew somebody there, and she said, well, I know a girl you might be interested in. She submitted my pictures, and I ended up getting into Playboy, and it was the same issue as Kimberly Page. So the beings that are at WCW brought me in for an interview with some of the other girls, and we were placed with the NWO for some eye candy, which are these stories already, but that's how I ended up falling in. I guess basically just because right place, right time, right look, right height. I got lucky.
But you were hired as eye candy. You then at that point decided to take it to the next level.
Yes.
And that's when
I've always used the boobs and the looks to try and hook people in the brain to keep them.
But you know what? I have to ask you this though. At this point, you were hired as eye candy. You were, you were a fitness model. You just got the gig in Playboy, but like becoming a professional wrestler is a whole other animal. Now all of a sudden you're going to get involved in something that was very physical. Were you involved in anything like that prior in your life? Or because even with fitness, you're working on your body, you're working out every single day. I understand that. But this is now more physical. So was that just an easy decision to make? I want to do this. Did you really understand what you were getting yourself into?
Oh, that's a detailed answer right there. First off, you are absolutely correct. Being in wrestling shape is not like being in shape. When you are competing for fitness, there is a huge difference between going out on stage and looking good and actually being in shape and being able to use it in the ring. And I found that once I started training, it was a whole different ballgame that I was not prepared for and did not know what I was getting into. My whole life I had been a gymnast and had competed. And I also competed in martial arts and taekwondo and judo. So I had been, and swimming too. So I have been physical my whole life. I can honestly tell you that as much as I've been through, and I grew up military, so my dad was extremely strict. I mean, he regularly ran boot camp at our house. I have never done anything as hard as wrestling. The wrestling training, when I went through it, I don't know if it's the same way now, but when I went through it, it was brutal. Brutal. You are dealing with pain from all kinds of pulled muscles, pain from injuries, as if you've been rear-ended again and again and again with somebody going X amount of miles hitting your car and just whiplash. It was just unbelievable. And I remember I started at Kowalski's in September, and when we had our Christmas break at that point, and between September and December, like a lot of film crews and NESN, NESN, and MSNBC and various magazines at that time came to the school, and they kept interviewing me, and it was the next big thing, and this girl's the next big thing, and there's no pressure there, right? And I remember during Christmas break, I didn't go back. I quit. I just couldn't take it anymore. It was just not what I expected. I was in so much pain. I couldn't keep up. I had a very hard time getting the footing right. I remember having the hardest time with arm drag, just being able to do a steamboat arm drag. I just could not get it. And falling went against everything I'd ever been trained to do. When you're a gymnast, you learn to land on your feet. You learn to flip over real quick and save yourself. Same with swimming, even karate to a degree. You learn how to do certain things. In wrestling, you have to go against all of that and learn how to fall safely and not put your hands down, not put your feet down, not land anywhere near your feet. It was just so different, I just couldn't grasp it. And my schoolmates came to my apartment in Boston and basically had an intervention. I'm like, if anybody's going to make something out of this, you have to come back to the class. I was the only girl there, and they basically dragged me back. So I went back, and then they started kind of hanging after and tutoring me with certain things like foot placement and how to do stuff.
April, I want to ask you this because that's interesting, that story that you tell me, but I want to ask you this, April. Usually in our minds, okay, from a psychological and mental point of view, okay, usually in our minds, when we're done with something, we're done with it. So like if I drop out of school, if I break up, with a girlfriend, or in your case, a boyfriend, usually mentally, if we quit something and we end something, we're done with it. So like you had already come to that, to that end game that I'm done. I quit. I'm not doing this. I kind of find it fascinating that you were able to go back and kind of reprogram your mind, to say, I'm going to give this another shot. I'm going to try this again. Because usually with people, when you quit something, you quit, it's over, you're done with. Even if you try to get back on the bike, you just can't do it. So from a mental aspect, how were you able to get back in the game when you quit for a lot of reasons that made sense?
I didn't have anything else. I think that's a two-part answer. And I was in a strange city. My boyfriend at the time and I were breaking up, and he was moving back to England. And I had nothing else to do, nowhere else to go. I had moved out to Boston just for wrestling. I went on the side, was also going to school for photography at the New England School of Photography, and I wasn't quite there yet either. So it was a combination of that, and it was a combination of that mentality in entertainment where you get burnt out, but you never really give up until the end, kind of thing. I don't think people always joke around about wrestling retirements never being real, but it's hard for somebody that's not in entertainment to understand what an entertainer's mind is. We are programmed to be different. Most of us are loath to give things up very quickly. We're kind of built a lot more tough, wouldn't you say? We're just the ones who can stay and the ones who can't end up not, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
they get broken and they get out.
Yeah, but April, let me ask you this. You had done several things before you started the training. You said you got into fitness. You were a fitness model. Then you had the experience with Playboy. So you had done a number of things. Then you said something that was very significant. You said when you started wrestling training, there was a lot of media because you were the next big thing. I have to ask you this now. What was the attraction? Exactly that, the entertainment aspect of it. And you know what? I could be an entertainer here. Was that what you were looking at, or did you over time just kind of get this love for the wrestling business? It's two completely different things.
Right. I think it was a challenge. I think ultimately it was a challenge to try and master it, because it was something, if I'm really honest, a lot of things had come easy to me and wrestling didn't. And I think that was part of the appeal, is that this thing that was so hard, that I was one of the only females in at that time, was difficult. And I also didn't really have any other females to wrestle. There were very few of them. And when there were females to wrestle on the independents, a lot of times there were just two girls. They were the same two girls all the time, no matter what. And the promoters used the same two girls all the time in each area. So other girls would sit on the sidelines until somebody got X'd out, and then we'd finally get a slot in. For me, I ended up I would wrestle the guys. So I started doing mixed tags a lot. It would be two guys against me and a male tag partner. And that's how I ended up working. But I think a lot of it was a challenge, just trying to, looking at this thing, and I'm like, I can't get this thing. This thing is really hard, and it's not coming to me easy, which is why I probably originally first had my breakdown, because something for once didn't come easy to me. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to try and tackle it and see if I can do it. So
April, when did you get your first big break?
WCW. That was it. I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't know what you consider a big break. I never really had a gigantic break in this business.
Yeah, and April, that's the essence of this interview. There's a couple of things I want to talk to you about, but that's one of the big things. I got to be honest with you, April. When I look at you, and I've seen you a couple times in person, and I look at your pictures, on the internet and whatnot. Listen, I'm not like kidding you. If I was going to cast Wonder Woman, like you'd be Wonder Woman. Like you look like a superhero to me. You just do. You've got that look. Let's face it. A lot of women in the business, and I love them all, but a lot of them, they look feminine. They're girly in their own way. You look like a superhero. You look like somebody that could come like straight out of a comic book. And I think that really makes you unique. And obviously that has a lot to do with the fitness background, and you still do fitness, and you look like a superhero. April, I have to ask you this. I'm going through your career, and I'm always seeing April Hunter is always on the cusp. Like she's always right there, and she's the girl people are talking about, but it never like seemed to get over the hump to give you that big break, to put you in a national spotlight on a weekly television show. And that baffles me, April. Why do you think that was the case?
Oh, I have so many theories. Well, here's your muscle for you.
But yeah, I'd love to hear the theories, because like I don't understand it.
Okay. The first one was, I was talking to Jim Ross, and they were interested in bringing me in, and then WCW and WWE folded at that particular time, and they were overwhelmed with whose contracts they were going to acquire and whose they were not. So I've had a lot of timing issues. That was just one of them. Another time, Jim Ross did actually offer me a developmental contract, and I couldn't take it at that particular time. He was going to send me to Louisville, Kentucky, and it was just bad timing at that particular point. I
was April. Let me ask you this. Let me just jump in there. Was it that it was bad timing, or was it, since you had to go to Louisville first, and I know the Louisville money obviously isn't WWE money. Was it bad timing, and it was difficult to make that move, basically based on, you would have had to pick up and move your life for X amount of dollars? Did that have anything to do with it, or it wasn't a money thing at all?
No, it's more of a It was like a family thing.
Okay, okay.
So it was just a lot going on at home, and there was just too much going on there that I couldn't take care of my career at the same time.
Okay.
And then sorry, go ahead.
No, you started bringing up TNA then at that point.
Oh yeah, I still continued to do well outside of the country. I was on TV in, Mexico, Japan, Europe, Canada, everywhere else. I would come home to my own country and I, was back down on a C list. But I worked overseas a lot. I started living or staying overseas extended periods of time and working there. I'd come back home. And this one tour, I did like a 5-week tour of Germany, France, Bulgaria, Romania. Came home, had about a day and a half, and then went down and filmed the Impact New Year's Eve tapings. And then right after that, and I'd done a couple things for TNA before that too. I think I was actually the first female wrestler they ever had against Alan Funk when he was doing the Miss TNA thing.
Right.
They weren't bringing in female wrestlers before that. I went back and forth and did a few things for them while they were in Tennessee. And then after the New Year's Eve thing, they asked if I would come back. But the pay was, and the insurance, they were having so many issues with not really, if somebody got hurt, you know how the medical in this country.
Yeah.
One day in a hospital could be $20,000.
Yeah.
So they wanted me to get cleared by my doctor, and they signed a waiver saying they wouldn't pay for anything medically at all. I just couldn't see it happening, so I declined. For the money, it was pretty bad.
Okay, April, this is the part, we're at the part now that really fascinates me about you, and I'm going to learn from this, okay? Listen, and you're the perfect person to ask these questions to. This is why I really wanted to have you on the show. Okay, April, listen, we all know, as a guy in the business, if you're not working for the WWE or you're not working for TNA or at the time WCW, you're an independent wrestler at that point, and you've got to go out there and hustle and get yourself booked every single weekend, just to make ends meet and pay the bills. I mean, it's a job, and that's what you have to go out there and get yourself booked. Now, April, I have to ask you this question. I've never asked a female performer this question before, because you're the only one that I've really interviewed that was in this unique position. Now, okay, you're not with WWE. WCW goes away. You're not with TNA, so you're an independent wrestler. But April, here's the difference. These cards that are being booked independently, they're lucky. You're lucky if there's one woman's match on the card. So in other words, if I'm a guy trying to get work and an indie promoter is having a show, well, that indie promoter might be looking for 18 guys and 2 girls. So now, your chances now of getting booked, because there's only going to be one female match, that those chances of getting booked are really, a small percentage. How difficult is it for you, or was it for you on an indie level, to get yourself booked when these promoters were maybe only booking one woman's match?
It was challenging. I was lucky to have enough of a name that I could still get booked fairly regularly, but I ended up doing 2 things. When I first started wrestling, I met Dawn Marie, and she gave me really good advice. She said, go out there and be eye candy. Learn how to be a tag team. Learn how to be a singles wrestler. Learn how to do a cat fight. She said, be everything that you can be, and best of all, try and manage a stable. That way, if one guy gets hurt, you'll still work. She said, so if the promoter needs somebody to be a tag team, or if the promoter needs you to have your clothes ripped off and do a cat fight, you will always work. You will be able to fill any slot that you could possibly fill. And she said this to me because I was coming off of a centerfold background and Playboy, and I was trying to be taken seriously as a wrestler. So I remember I was wearing full pants, covering up completely, trying to be like one of the guys, very athletic. And she's like, girlfriend, you are doing it all wrong. She's like, you need to embrace your sexuality, play it up, She goes, still throw a forearm like a guy. She goes, get out there and run the ropes like a guy. She goes, but you need to wiggle your ass too. So there was that. I learned to do the whole scheme of all of it, and I credit a lot of, independent working for that, and as well as being trained at Kowalski's. And also, I think, doing a lot of touring outside of the United States, and for me, trying to, I think, diversify a lot more. I still stayed modeling. I started doing a lot more, I work for comic books now, comic book artists. So I work for like George Perez from Boom Studios. He worked for Marvel and DC Comics. I'm one of his models. So I do a lot of comic cons and doing like independent films and different things. So when wrestling dries up, you can go ahead and do some comic cons. Sorry. Like half parched here. But yeah, if something dries up here, you can go ahead and do something over here. So that's always helped a lot.
April, I want to ask you this because I'm experiencing this a little bit now on my own. I've been doing podcasts now for about a year. And, on the surface, that sounds easy, but it's not easy. I mean, it's a hustle for me. And every day I have a laundry list of things I need to do, and it never ends. It never stops. And basically, in retrospect, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build a Vince Russo brand. Okay. Now, April, I know, I'm going to start here with you. I know that you're hustling non-stop. But by everything you just said, by everything I'm reading about you, and, just all these facets that you're into, you're so multi-dimensional, but it's a hustle. And it's constant work. April, do you ever get tired? Like, do you ever, you've got to get to the point. I know you program yourself to be that way, but do you ever because I get to the point, I'm tired, man. I'm really tired. I don't want to do this tomorrow. I mean, do you get to that point? And if you do, and I would assume you have to because you're human, how do you just get over that and just keep hustling?
Oh my God, yes. Okay. So So in addition to the bookings that I have to deal with and appearances and arranging shoots, and a lot of times I arrange my own travel because everybody screws it up anyway, I run April Hunter Blog, which is my blog site. I run my own website, aprilhunter.com. I run a video pay-per-view site on Clips for Sale. I have April Sensations, which is a small soy candle business. And the work for these things is never ending, like the constant promotion, nonstop, round the clock. I embrace Hootsuite. Are you familiar with it?
No, I'm not.
It does like round the clock tweets nonstop, and you can feed it up to Facebook and everything else too. And sorry, I'm part Italian. I talk with my hands. Anyway. When I get burnt, I think I either, because I live in Florida and we're near the water, I either do something on the water, or lately, because I'm one of 3 people in the world who has not seen Breaking Bad, I have gone on Breaking Bad marathons with pizza and ice cream. So that's
April, I'm assuming this now. With everything you're telling me, I'm assuming you're not married, correct?
I'm not married, no.
Do you have a steady boyfriend?
I do, yes.
Because to me, it just seems like that's impossible. How do you fit the boyfriend in through all that? I'm dead to. This is what I love about you. I'm going to be honest with you because I know what it is now. I'm trying to build a Vince Russo brand, and April, let's face it. I'm building a brand off of. I worked for a long time at WWE, WCW, TNA, the major promotions. I worked there, for a long period of time. So I'm building a brand off of that. You basically are building a brand more or less off of being an independent, wrestler. But every time I see your tweets, you're building a brand, you're selling this, you're promoting this. I love it. I mean, I see it all the time. And that's why I'm so intrigued by by what you're doing. But it's, you know, like I said, I know firsthand it's nonstop work. And I know I personally get tired. But I got to ask you this now, April. When you look at building the April Hunter brand, which obviously you're doing, is it like a day-to-day thing for you? Or like, is there an ultimate goal that you have your eyes on?
Right. It's kind of a day-to-day thing for the most part, but for the future, I have two goals, and that is to expand April's Sensations, the soy candle business. And then I also just applied to Full Sail University for creative writing for entertainment. So I should be starting school in October for a bachelor's degree. So I'll be taking that on as well. So I'm going to have to cut back on some other stuff, I guess. But I should officially have no life then.
Do you know, I bet you don't even know this. Do you know who teaches writing at Full Sail University?
I don't.
Ed Ferrara.
Oh, you're kidding, really?
You're probably going to be in Ed Ferrara's class.
I probably will.
Now, April, but I got to ask you this: with the April Hunter brand, and how can you possibly fit that in?
Well, I'll be doing a lot of online classes, and I don't know. I'll try. I don't know. You said about a boyfriend. He's a civilian, a regular person, so he works all day long, and so I have all my days free to do whatever I want, and I work nonstop. I've just recently started just getting up earlier and earlier and earlier now. I used to be a night person, and I would get up at the crack of noon. Now it's 7 o'clock, no matter what time I go to bed.
But April, with all you've accomplished thus far, and now, you know, going to Full Sail, you know, to pick up on the writing, is there one thing you want to do that you haven't done? And is that the reason to go back to school? Is there, listen, here's the April Hunter brand. I've done so many things in my life and been successful, but there's still that one thing eluding me. Is that a part of it?
Yes. I would like to write a book. I would like to write a miniseries. And I would also like to write somehow, I'd like to get like I know this is a lofty goal, but a Showtime style television show. So, and, where you don't have to be as censored and just go with it. But that's where I would like to go. And I would like my own action figure, but that has nothing to do with writing.
April, I got to ask you this question because I'm a little surprised by this, and I understand, you have a boyfriend there and everything else, and I get that. But with everything you're doing, and like with all these ambitions that you have, like why aren't you living right smack in the middle of Los Angeles?
Because I don't like LA. I don't know. I don't know. I love Florida. I love where I am. I'm in Tampa Bay.
I got to tell you something, April. Somebody like you, I mean, with your energy and your resume and the excitement that you bring to the table and the look and everything you have going for you, man, I would just think if you're living right smack in the middle of LA, it would just be a matter of time, no?
I don't know. I always thought because of my age now, I'm a lot older, so I figured LA's kind of a young girl's game,
Yeah, but I would agree with that because like that's my case too. But I don't agree with that as far as what you bring to the table. The fact of the matter is you still have that dream and that desire to write, and there are not a lot of female writers in the entertainment industry at this point. And honestly, I don't think there's an age to that. I think if you're a female and you've got that female perspective, I think you're very, very valuable as a writer, in Los Angeles and in the entertainment industry. I don't necessarily think there's an age on that. I mean, come on, let's look at, Tina Fey, and Amy Poehler. They're basically your age, and they probably aren't even at the peak of their careers yet.
No, wait, they're 10 years older than I am.
Well, so there you go. So what do you tell April? I can't believe. Listen, this is what's troubling me now. I can't believe you're not up in and living in LA because you like Florida. You could be huge out there.
I just never really gave it a thought, I guess.
Do you want me to be your agent? Is that what you're telling me? You want me to represent you?
Absolutely.
You don't ever think of, you know what? I'm going to pick myself. I'm going to go and I'm going to do this. With everything you've accomplished?
Well, kind of moving from the Northeast down to Florida was the pick myself and move somewhere to do something. It was kind of like LA light, just more laid back and more humidity. But there seemed to be a pretty good entertainment thing going on here. So that's, plus at the time I wasn't writing as much. I started doing it more once I got here. I was working on the road so much, I was kind of just scribbling in notebooks all the time and throwing them on blogs when I had a chance.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too, bro. You're still on the road a lot, correct?
Not as much.
Yeah, well, that's good too. But I mean, spending so much time on the road, I mean, I understand that it is nice to call someplace home. I mean, I totally get that. Where were you rooted in the Northeast, April?
Philadelphia.
Is that where you were born and raised?
Well, I was born in Philadelphia, and my mom was from right outside of it in a place called Media. And then we're military, so we kind of got shuffled around here and there. I grew up partly in deep south too, like Alabama, but I've always considered Philadelphia home, Northeast. So and I went to school in Boston, so yeah.
Now, April, you said early on, and you kind of skimmed over that, but I don't skim over this. This is the one thing that I popped out at me like a pimple on my where. But you mentioned I'm Italian. You said I'm Italian at one point during this interview, and I knew we were going to get back to the Italian. So Hunter is not your real name, because what's your Italian name?
Actually, yeah, no, we're Scottish too, but my grandma's name was Salino.
Salino. So you're Italian on your mother's side or your father's side?
Mother's. Father's side was Scottish.
So Salino, that's a nice Italian name, Salino.
Yeah.
Are you a good Italian cook, April? How about that?
I'm not half bad. I tend to lean more like Italian French, though, because I spent a lot of time over in different parts of France, so I picked up a lot of their style. So
what does that mean? You put like meatballs in croissants, or like what exactly does that mean?
It means I tend to not use a lot of the red sauce or red gravy. I use more of like the olive oil and
okay, all right, fair enough.
Hey,
April, I want to ask you this. I'm being dead serious now, because you got to help out the Vince Russo brand. I've been doing this for a year now. You've been doing this for a long time, and the April Hunter brand gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. As I'm building my brand as a shoot, can you kind of just give me like some pointers? Like you mentioned, Dawn Marie immediately gave you some really good pointers as it pertains to wrestling, and she was spot on with all that stuff, by the way, dead on. As I'm building my brand here, honestly, can you school me a little bit? Like what is the most important thing? What do I need to be doing, and what should I never do?
Gosh.
like April, like here's a perfect example. Like I always see you on Twitter, and I see you building the brand, right? Like here's such a simple question. Like I never know when I'm promoting too much. You know what I'm saying? Like you know, April. Listen. I have to sell myself. I have to sell the brand. I have to make money, but I don't want to get to the point of making people sick with it. And it's like it's a very fine line. So how do you handle your self-promotion?
Well, I probably over-promote too, but at the end of the day, you are trying to make a living. However, somebody told me when I first got on the internet, they said the internet is like a wall. you throw enough shit at it, some of it's going to stick. So I've kind of taken that to heart and thrown as much shit at it as I can, which I would suggest other people do that if they're trying to sell something too. But I've found that if you converse a lot with fans, get back to them, answer their questions, say thank you. Thank you is a big one. When they send you things and do things, I have a lot of really good fans, so I'm very fortunate. I have actually some amazing fans, and 2 or 3 jerks. Yeah, I try and get back to the fans. I've always been pretty good like that. And lately, I've been reading a book called The Thank You Economy. Have you ever read that?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay, 2 books I could suggest for you. I don't know how you do things, but these 2 books are really good and fairly short. The Thank You Economy is one.
Okay.
And the other one, since you're a writer, is called Steal Like an Artist. That one's real short, and it's really good for ideas. Like, for example, he says, if you steal from one person, it's plagiarism. If you steal from a bunch, it's research.
Hey, April, I lost your picture for a minute, but you just came back. Okay, so Steal Like an Artist. Tell me what you just said again.
Steal Like an Artist. It's a very short book, especially if you're in something creative like writing. And it's I found that one to be extremely helpful, especially when you're self-employed. And one of the things he says, if you steal from one person, it's plagiarism. But if you steal from many, it's research. So there's a bunch of little isms in there that you'll find helpful.
Do you have any rules of thumb? I have to do this and I shouldn't do this? Or I don't know, do you just kind of play it by ear and listen, this is what I got to promote at the time and this is what I'm going to go out and promote?
Oh, it depends on the day. I have to-do lists that are this long. I mean, they're ridiculous. And I always feel like I'm never really getting on top of them. Sometimes seriously, this is how bad it is. I will do something and realize it's not on the list, and I will write it on the list just so I can cross it off and feel like I'm getting ahead on that day.
I like that. That's a good little trick. I like that.
Yeah, I'm going on the next thing. So.
Hey, April, I'm going to throw something else on that list. I don't know if you've ever considered this. I'd have to think that you considered this because you're such a woman of all trades. April, I got to tell you something. I think you'd be a phenomenal podcaster, and there aren't a lot of women doing podcasts. I'm serious. Have you thought about that?
Some of the fans actually keep asking me to do one. I have no idea how to do one. None. And I've vaguely said, yeah, I'll think about it to them, and I just haven't. So I don't know. I wouldn't know what I'm doing. So
well, April,
I would probably just end up talking about politics and religion all the time.
I'm going to throw this out there. I had on a couple of months ago, I had my friend on the show, and I'm sure you know him, Bill DeMott, and I told Bill, I said, Bill, I think you'd be an excellent podcaster. I said, if you ever want to do it, let me know. I'm on the Realm Network. I've got a relationship with them. I'm trying to build my own network under their umbrella. And sure enough, after a couple of months, Bill contacted me, said he'd like to give it a whirl, and he's going to be starting his own show on the Realm Network. And Miss April, I'd like to throw you that same opportunity. If you ever think that podcasting is something you'd like to do, please let me know. I didn't know anything about it a year ago either. Please let me know. I'd be happy to assist you. I'd be happy to walk you along. I'd be happy to bring you to the Realm Network because I think you'd be a very good podcaster.
Thank you. I might actually take you up on it, depending on how everything goes.
Yeah, well,
I think a lot of stuff. I missed out on a lot of opportunities because I'm trying to cram too much into one day half the time.
Yeah. Well, just keep that in the back of your mind. So, April, listen, as we wrap up, I want you to put everything out there, what you're involved in now, how the fans can reach you, how they can stay in contact with you, how we can buy your products. Just please lay all that out to us now. Okay.
Here's the hard sell. AprilHunter.com is how you can get a hold of me. Which, Vince, you could have gotten a hold of me, AprilHunter.com.
I guess I could.
It's a little email there, and it comes right to my phone. I know. On Twitter, I'm April Hunter. On Instagram, I'm Real April Hunter. because apparently there's a lot of April hunters out there, or there are people who like to say they are me for some reason. Now, personally, if I'm going to imitate somebody, I pick somebody way cooler than I am, but okay. So there's that. And what else do I have? If you're into the centerfold stuff, I have clips for sale, and it's store 31614. So that's pretty much it. Oh wait, now that's April Hunter blog is not for the weak. That's very, very stripped down and honest.
And that's where you do a lot of your writing.
Yes, and that is, I do not pull any punches on there. So it's actually called putting the clothes on and taking the gloves off.
Yeah, I saw that. And how do I get to that? AprilHunterblog.com?
That's it. Yep.
I'm going to check that out myself. I want to read some of your writings. I didn't know you were that heavily into writing. But what about the candle gimmick now? You're selling the candles. Don't you want to talk about that?
Oh, yeah. I just do, it's all organic soy candles in a variety of flavors, basically. I have everything from, and weird names. Like I have one that's chocolate cappuccino. It's called, wait, you're not censored on this, are you?
No, you're good. You're good.
It's called the FK Up. Okay. It's made with the espresso, and I use the Cuban coffee in it, and it's got little espresso beans in it, and a little bit of chocolate, and it's all organic, and it's called Wake the Fuck Up. And
now, April, how the heck did you get into that? Was that just a hobby?
Kind of. Yeah. You can. I'm on Etsy on April Sensations and on Facebook April Sensations. And when I was a kid, my mom bought me a candle kit, and I was making candles then. And here's how it happened: my ex-husband and I, we got along really well. We were married for a very long time, and I kind of hit this thing where I just more or less wanted to move on with life. And I remember saying to him, or him saying to me, as one or the other, I said, I'm not really happy right now, and I don't know how to get it back. And he said, well, what did you like to do when you were a kid? And I listed a few things down. I said, I like to go on bike rides. I like to go swimming. I like to make candles. He was like, well, why don't you do those things again? The things that you did when you didn't have to worry about money and stuff and work. So I started doing them again, and then I would post pictures on Instagram or Facebook saying what I was doing, and people were like, are you selling those? And I was like, no, I just making them for fun. And they were like, well, I'll buy that. And I couldn't understand how people would buy something without smelling it, but they were buying them, and then they were buying them again, and then they kept buying them. So I started putting up pages and selling them, and then started doing like little trade shows and selling them. So that's how it happens.
Well, I like that advice.
It's just more of a hobby.
Yeah, I like that advice from your ex-husband. Kind of just get back to the basics of what made you happy.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. He was a smart guy. He's a good guy.
Yeah, and you still wrestle. I mean, you still wrestle independently. How often are you doing that these days?
As infrequently as possible. I am very beat up. I try and work smarter instead of harder.
Well, that's good. That's good.
So,
well, yeah. April, listen,
my physicality is limited.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm glad it took me a while to finally get you pinned down, but I'm very happy that I did. This interview was very, very enlightening. You taught me a lot. I'm a big fan of the April Hunter brand and everything that you do. And remember what I said: if you ever want to throw your hat in the podcasting ring, remember me in the back of your mind, and you know how to get a hold of me.
Is it because I talk with my hands too? You have a kinship here?
I think we have a kinship. I think you talk with your hands. I think you got the Italian heritage. But you're knowledgeable about many things. That's why I think you would have such a broad rainbow of different guests you could bring on, different people you could talk to. You're knowledgeable about so many things. That's why I think you'd be very successful. Thank you.
I was saying something the other day. I was saying when you grow up Italian, even if you're not even that Italian, if somebody in your house is, it's like it's a culture more than anything else at times. It's almost like being Jewish. You can be Jewish in religion or culture. Italian's like the same thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean?
I know exactly.
It's just a thing.
And the funny thing is, I didn't even know you were Italian. And like right before your interview, I interviewed Bubba, who's more Italian than anybody in the world, and I couldn't even get him off the show because I told him that I had to interview you. But between Bubba with his hands and you with your hands and me with my hands, I'm a little dizzy right now, to be honest with you. But April, listen, thanks for joining us today. I hope you'll be a friend of the show. I hope you'll return for another appearance on the show sometime.
Definitely. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Okay. April, don't go anywhere because I want to give you a personal thank you. But there you have it, everybody. The great April Hunter. She gave you all the places where she could be followed. Follow the brand. She has a lot to offer. Again, I want to thank her for being our Vixen Who Rules this week. And there's no doubt in my mind she will continue to rule. And maybe one day we'll even hear her here in a podcast. Let's see what happens. But anyway, thanks for joining me. I'll see you right here next week.
The preceding presentation was brought to you by the Realm Network.